All right, so you guys wanted to know more about what Mark Zuckerberg's been saying about the future, and well, we dug up this interview from 2025, and it is fascinating stuff. I mean, 5 years out, Metaverse is booming, AI is going crazy.
Yeah, it's more than just like, the usual tech hype. He lays out a pretty clear roadmap in this interview. And I think, there are three big things that he hits on. It's how he wants to build the metaverse.
Yeah.
What are the AI breakthroughs that he's really excited about? And then how does all this change Facebook?
So let's start with, I guess, what's on everybody's mind, right? It's the metaverse. Zuckerberg's talking about 1 billion people, like 1 billion with a B in the metaverse by 2030. I mean, is that even possible?
That's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah, but he kind of gives you a glimpse into how he wants to get there. And it's not just about like headsets anymore. He's talking about haptic suits, neural interfaces. It's like a virtual experience that feels as real as like the physical world.
So you wouldn't just see it, you'd feel it. Okay, but I mean, that sounds pretty wild, but what would we even do there besides like games? Would we be working in the metaverse too?
Right. Well, he's not just talking about replacing reality, right? It's more like expanding it. He talks about remote surgery being done by surgeons that are thousands of miles away, like virtual tourism, so you could explore the world from your living room, attending concerts that are happening like across the planet.
Okay, but I mean, can Meta actually make all this happen? They've got like Apple and Google breathing down their necks now?
He actually addresses that in the interview.
Yeah.
I think he's pretty confident that Meta's scale gives them an advantage, right? They're not just building a platform. They're creating a whole metaverse economy, digital fashion, virtual real estate, like the whole thing. They want to be like the backbone of this new world.
Creating an entire economy, that's a pretty big goal. But it makes me wonder, where does AI fit into all of this? It seems like AI is changing just as fast as the metaverse is.
Yeah, you're right. And that's actually the second big part of the interview. Zuckerberg makes it clear that AI, in his mind, is going way beyond, those chatbots that we're seeing right now. He talks about Meta's work with this thing called LLaMA 3.0. That's their latest AI model. And he talks about using it for things like predicting diseases, optimizing like clean energy grids, even like mediating conflicts, like international conflicts in real time.
Wait, AI mediating conflicts? That sounds kind of scary and pretty awesome at the same time. Is he talking about like replacing diplomats with algorithms?
That's where it gets really interesting. He talks about embodied AI. So imagine instead of just lines of code, AI agents that actually exist in the metaverse.
Yeah.
And they learn and evolve through interactions with humans. He seems to think these AI agents could actually become really good mediators.
Yeah.
Because they could draw on all this data, historical conflicts and cultural nuances, and find solutions that maybe like we wouldn't even think of.
Okay, that's either brilliant or terrifying.
Yeah.
But it makes me wonder, with all this talk about the metaverse and super intelligent AI, what happens to Facebook? Doesn't it just seem kind of old-fashioned now?
And that's where the third part of the interview gets really interesting. So he doesn't see Facebook as like obsolete. It's more like the foundation for this AI-powered, metaverse-driven future. He calls it the AI-first social layer. And it's about using AI to personalize your experience, in ways we can't even imagine yet.
So what does that actually look like? Is it just better recommendations or something?
He goes way beyond that. He's talking about Facebook, where your feed is actually curated by a digital twin.
Yeah.
It's an AI that learns your preferences so well, it practically knows you better than you know yourself.
A digital twin, is this thing analyzing my every like and comment?
That's the idea. It learns from every interaction. It's always refining. It's understanding of you. So let's say you need to plan a trip. Your digital twin could handle the entire process, booking flights, recommending hotels based on your, past trips, even creating these virtual previews of places. You could check them out before you even book.
Okay, I have to admit, that personalized service, that sounds pretty good, but is there like a downside to this? This digital twin sounds a little creepy. What about our privacy?
You're hitting on like the big question. How do we balance this incredible potential with all the concerns about privacy and control and, the possibility of misuse?
It sounds like there's a lot more questions than answers, but this is definitely a conversation that needs to continue. So what do we do now?
Well, in part 2 of this deep dive, we're going to explore what Zuckerberg thinks a typical day might look like in this future that he's building. Get ready, because it gets even wilder.
Okay, sounds good. Last time we were talking about Zuckerberg's vision for this, this AI-powered future and, built on Facebook and the metaverse. I mean, he's got some pretty compelling ideas. But I have to admit, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it all. I mean, yeah, it sounds super convenient, but is all this AI integration really a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's It's a question we all have to wrestle with. And to be fair to Zuckerberg, he doesn't pretend there aren't downsides.
Yeah.
But he really seems to believe that this whole humans and technology evolving together thing
Yeah.
is like essential for us to move forward, as a species.
Okay, so let's say I'm skeptical but curious.
Right.
What would my day look like in this future he's describing?
Okay.
Like, walk me through it.
All right, so you wake up and you put on your Meta glasses.
Yeah.
No more bulky headsets. And your digital twin, it's already been working all night. It's got your whole day planned out based on your preferences and what you want to achieve that day.
Hold on. We talked about this digital twin before, but I still don't really get it. How much does this AI actually know about me?
Think of it like it's this digital mirror, and it's constantly reflecting back at you, like your habits, your preferences, even your aspirations, everything you do online, the articles you read, the products you look at. It all gets fed into this AI so it can figure out what you want even before you know it.
Okay, so the AI twin's got my day planned. What's next?
Well, let's say you want to start with some yoga, but instead of going to a studio, you just put on a haptic suit, and you join a virtual class led by some world-famous yoga guru right in your living room. And it's not just visual, you feel everything, the mat, the breeze.
Wow, it's like a workout and a vacation at the same time. So this AI thing, it's with me all day.
Exactly, it's always there. You're driving to work. Your AI assistant not only handles the traffic, it also suggests a podcast. Based on, what you've been reading and your mood, you have a presentation. Your digital twin runs simulations to help you prepare.
That's a lot of support, but let's be real. Not everyone is going to like having AI all up in their business.
Of course not. There will always be people who don't like change, people who are really into their privacy, and people who just like things the old-fashioned way. Zuckerberg gets that, but he thinks the advantages are bigger than the downsides.
But what about us as a society? If everyone's hanging out with their AI buddies and in their virtual worlds, won't that make us even more disconnected?
That's a really important question. And Zuckerberg actually talks about it. He says the metaverse isn't about replacing real-life interaction. It's about making those connections stronger. Imagine going to a virtual concert with friends from all over the world, or working on a project with colleagues from different continents.
So it's not about isolation, it's about bringing people together.
Yeah, exactly. Breaking down those barriers.
Okay, I can see that, but what about the cost of all this? All this fancy tech, it's got to be expensive. What about people who can't afford it?
That's a real concern. And Zuckerberg doesn't ignore it. He talks about making sure the metaverse is available to everyone, no matter how much money they have. He even imagines governments helping people afford it.
That's a huge promise. But even if it happens, there's still the problem of misuse. This technology is powerful. It could be used for good or bad.
Yeah, he says there need to be strong security and ethical guidelines to stop the bad guys from taking advantage. There are risks, but he believes we can overcome them.
It sounds like a really tough balancing act.
It is.
All this potential, but also all these risks. But who decides how it all works out? Is it just the big tech companies like Meta, or do the rest of us get a say?
That's the million-dollar question. And Zuckerberg doesn't have a clear answer. He talks about working together and having open discussions, but he also seems to think that companies like Meta should be the ones leading the way.
It's like he sees Meta not just as a company, but as some kind of, leader of the future. But before we go too far with that, there's one thing we haven't talked about yet: money. How does Meta plan to make money in this new world? I mean, they are a business, right?
Yes, the money question. And Zuckerberg's answer is pretty bold.
Okay, I'm listening.
So remember that metaverse economy we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, he sees that as the key. Imagine a virtual world where you can buy and sell things just like in real life. Virtual real estate, digital clothes, experiences we can't even think of yet. And Meta would be the platform that makes it all possible, taking a cut of every transaction.
It sounds like a digital gold rush. But wouldn't that mean the rich get richer? I mean, those who can afford to spend more will have a way better experience.
You're right. That's a really important point. And Zuckerberg talks about having different levels. So basic access to the metaverse would be free, but you could pay for extra features and experiences.
So it's like those free games where you can buy upgrades.
Kind of, but with much bigger consequences.
Yeah.
We're not talking about extra lives in a game. We're talking about access to education, opportunities, even social connections.
Wow, this is getting serious. This isn't just about new gadgets anymore. This is about a whole new way of life.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting. Because in the last part of the interview, Zuckerberg starts talking about the philosophical side of it all.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll dive into the deep end of Zuckerberg's vision. All right, so we've talked about the metaverse, AI, Facebook becoming something totally new, even how Meta's going to make money from all of this. But it feels like, the big stuff, like what it all means, we haven't really gotten into that yet. The philosophical stuff, the ethical questions, a future where technology is everywhere.
And that's where this interview gets really deep. Zuckerberg doesn't just see this as technology getting better. He calls it co-evolution. Humans and technology kind of growing together, each one shaping the other.
So it's not like the Terminator with machines taking over. It's more like we work together, we both benefit.
Right, and he talks about how that could lead to, amazing things for humanity.
Yeah, but there's still that part of me that's like, is this really a good idea?
Yeah.
AI being so involved in our lives, it just feels a little, I don't know.
I get it. And Zuckerberg actually talks about those concerns. Like, what happens if we depend on technology too much?
Right, exactly.
Or if people become isolated?
Yeah, like everyone's in their own little world.
And even, like, what does it even mean to be human? When the real world and the virtual world, they're so mixed up, you can't tell the difference.
Those are some big questions. It's like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's actually happening.
Yeah. And Zuckerberg, he doesn't shy away from those questions. He actually seems to like talking about them. He thinks we need to be having these conversations as a society. And he thinks Meta should be a part of that.
But isn't that kind of weird? I mean, Meta is a company. They want to make money. Can we really trust them to lead this conversation fairly?
That's the thing, isn't it? Can a company with this much power actually be responsible with technology that's going to change everything?
Right.
Zuckerberg says it's not about one or the other. He thinks Meta can be successful and also do good things in the world.
That's a tough sell. But even if Meta does have good intentions, who gets to decide what this future looks like? Is it a bunch of tech guys, or do we all get a say?
That's the question. And Zuckerberg, he doesn't really have a clear answer. He says we need to work together, be open to talking about these things. But he also seems to think that Meta should be the one in charge.
It's like he sees Meta as, I don't know, the architects of the future.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it.
It feels like we're at this turning point,
Right.
where the decisions we make about technology now, they're going to affect everything going forward.
That's exactly what Zuckerberg is saying. He's telling us to think about what kind of future we want
Right.
and to actually do something about it. It's not about just letting technology happen to us. It's about deciding how we want to use it in our lives.
I like that.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the values behind it.
Right. Like, what are our priorities?
Exactly. And that's what makes this interview so interesting. It's not just about the metaverse or AI. It's about how we relate to technology.
And how do we make sure it's a good thing for everyone?
Exactly.
So after all this, what are we supposed to do?
I think the main takeaway is that the future isn't set in stone. We create it by the choices we make now.
That's a good point. It's on all of us to make sure this technology revolution actually benefits everyone.
Right. We need to be informed, we need to talk about these things, and we need to demand that these companies are building technology responsibly and ethically.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's our future.
So that's it for our deep dive into Mark Zuckerberg's 2025 vision. Pretty wild stuff, right?
Definitely a lot to think about.
We hope you found it informative and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Yeah, we want to encourage you to keep learning about all this, keep talking about it, and think about how you can help shape the future.
It's up to all of us. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep those brains